McCaul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, the Senate, as I mentioned, passed a preemptive war powers resolution that the House will vote on in the coming weeks, directing the United States to cease hostilities against Iran. Again, I believe this is based on a false premise. So my question is very simple. Let me ask you this. Are we engaged in active hostilities against and in Iran?
We are not. Our posture to push back against the behaviors of the Islamic Republic of Iran is designed to deter and to defend America's interest.
And thank you. What signal does this division in the Congress send to the largest state sponsor of terror, Iran?
So as a former member, I always have a high tolerance for people expressing their views, the views of their constituents. And so, members of Congress have a responsibility to do that. Having said that, it is the case that around the world, leaders observe when there is not a consistent view across all of the United States government, and America's policies are best effectuated when there is a consensus that emerges around American foreign policy. And I would encourage everyone to take on board what the administration is doing and urge them to come to the consensus and assist us in delivering the change in the regime's behavior that I think everyone in this room today understands is both necessary and in America's best interest.
And I'm all for Article 1 constitutional authorities, but I do believe the President had authorities under Article 2 in self-defense. In addition, he was a designated foreign terrorist under the Obama administration. Let me ask you this. The Washington Post recently reported the Quds Force has been significantly deterred from retaliating further against the United States since the death of Soleimani. Can you tell us how Iran's activities have changed since the United States took out Mr. Soleimani?
So that's probably best for a classified setting, I can say in an unclassified setting, they recognize the seriousness with which America acted to take the strike against Qasem Soleimani. And I think they appreciate the seriousness with which President Trump and the administration are taking our obligation to defend America and our partners. And it clearly demonstrated our preparedness to continue to deter Iran's behavior. And I think they've taken that seriously.
And last question. Do you believe that in terms of a threat in the future, depending, not saying on what type of time scale, that Mr. Soleimani was planning to kill more Americans, possibly in Iraq?
Oh, 100%.
And that would be based
on a very short time frame. He was in the region actively plotting to kill Americans in the region.
So we are, in a way, had the president done nothing and more Americans have been killed, or we had a 1979 hostage situation, the president would be blamed for that, wouldn't he? If he did nothing.
It was my judgment that this reduced risk to America to take this strike. I think the team all presented that to the president. He made a final decision that that was right, that we would reduce risk both in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term to American interess.
And so the American people, but most importantly, our diplomats and soldiers in the region are certainly safer because of that decision. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Undoubtedly.
I'd just like to close with, I've been in the White House with some of these discussions. The president was very clear. I do not want to go to war with Iran. And he said that repeatedly. And I still think he believes that. I saw tremendous restraint when we were looking at how to respond to the U.S. drone that was shot down by the Iranians, a U.S. military asset, when 50% of Saudi's refinery capability taken out. And then finally, when they attacked our American embassy, it was not some brush fire. It was bombed out. I had the picture on the House floor. Serious attack on our American embassy. That cannot go without a response. And I think the president was very restrained time and time again, but they, I think, crossed the red line when they attacked our embassy, killed a contractor, and wounded 3 soldiers, in addition to the hundreds of American soldiers that Soleimani killed and maimed, one of whom is right in front of me, does not have his legs anymore, Mr. Mass, because of Soleimani, the biggest terrorist in the Middle East since bin Laden. And I think the world, Mr. Secretary, is much safer without him. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr.